Senator from Florida.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that I be allowed to complete my remarks.
Without objection.
And I know we are scheduled for a vote here in a few minutes, so I may we'll have plenty of time to talk about this in the days to come. I think one of the core things that I hope tax reform will be about is empowering the American worker. And by the American worker, I mean the people that don't make Netflix series about, and you don't see movies too often anymore. There was a time when the American worker was a hero in our country, and people looked up to the American worker and idealized it. Today, obviously, entertainment focuses on other professions, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but we've forgotten the value of hard work and the millions and millions of Americans across this country that truly remain the backbone of our economy and of our nation. Hardworking men and women who are struggling to get by, not because they're not working hard, but because everything costs more. Something you quickly find out as your family begins to grow, and it's why I have spent so much time talking about the child tax credit. A lot of people confuse that with a child care credit, which is important as well, but the child tax credit takes into account the reality that raising children is an expense. It's a blessing, but it costs money. And so, in the end of the day, it doesn't always matter how much you make, it also matters how much you spend. And when you're raising children and raising a family, the costs are often out of your control, and they increase substantially every single year. And so perhaps the best way to illustrate to you the impact that tax reform has on working families is to talk about real people and their real lives, how much money they make, and what would tax reform mean for them. I want to start with a real family, a particular family that my staff's been communicating with. That's the Starling family, Richard and Emily. They're a very young family from Jacksonville, Florida, and they have a 2-year-old daughter, and they are expecting their second child in March. Now, Richard's a pastor, and he works part-time at Starbucks. He makes about $25,000 a year. His wife, Emily, stays home and cares for their daughter while he's at work. Because of their income, the Senate tax bill's non-refundable child tax credit increase would actually be worth very little for them. A lot of people said to me, well, we've increased it to $2,000, so isn't that great? It is. But what does it mean? What people don't understand is if the majority, if not all of the taxes you pay are payroll tax, it doesn't help a lot. I always, by the way, I frankly get offended when I hear people say, these Americans that don't pay taxes, they do pay taxes. Not income tax, but they pay payroll tax. They take it out of your check every month. Trust me, it's a tax. It's less money than what was supposed to be there before the tax, or less money after the tax, I should say. So the tax credit, while we increased to $2,000, that's great for a lot of people. It does nothing for them. The total effect is only about $115 for the family. That's how much they'll be saving in their taxes from the current year, $115. But here's where it gets worse. The Senate bill, which I am largely supportive of, but I just want to tell you what the numbers are so that we can see where the changes need to be. The Senate bill would actually increase taxes in March when they have a child. You say, how can that be? Well, as for some families in their income range, the non-refundable increase to the child credit is less valuable than the current law's personal exemption. So we take away the personal exemption, we put in this additional child credit, but it's non-refundable. They can't get to that tax credit because they're not paying income tax, and the result is that if they made $26,000 instead of $25,000, the Senate bill would actually take away $15 from their per-child tax cut. So these families, they work hard, they pay their taxes, they raise children, they're contributing an extraordinary amount to our country, and they need their help more than ever before. So there's a couple other examples, and I'll go to the first chart. Let's take, for example, a tire changer and a preschool teacher with 2 children in Gainesville, Florida, the home of the University of Florida, the finest learning institution in the Southeast. This is an editorial thing. It's also a matter of fact. But anyway, I digress. Let me get back to here. Chart number 1, we talk about this family. The husband, as I said, he works at a local auto shop. He's a tire changer. His wife is a preschool teacher. And according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, these 2 jobs, their combined income would be $28,300. Because the increase to the child tax credit is non-refundable, the extra money we've put in, this family wouldn't nearly have enough income tax liability to take advantage of the full credit. So the bill, as it's currently written, gives them a tax cut of $200, about $50 per person. But what if we did what Senator Lee and I are proposing, which is to make the child tax credit fully refundable, even against payroll tax? Well, then their tax cut would not be $200. it would be $1,570. Now, trust me when I tell you that for a family making $28,000 a year, a $1,500 pay increase in real cash matters. Matters. Doesn't solve all their problems, but it helps. Here's another one. Take this example. A husband who's a private in the Army National Guard, and his wife is a waitress at a local restaurant. They have 3 children. Say he's in active duty at Camp Blanding in Stark, Florida, and she works full-time. Combined income, $33,832, according to the National Guard base pay. Because the increase, again, is non-refundable in the child tax credit, they don't have enough income to take full advantage of the tax credit. Now, the bill, as currently written, cuts their taxes by $388. The proposal that Senator Lee and I have outlined would cut their taxes by $2,100. So a $2,100 pay increase for this working family in cash will matter. Will matter. Doesn't solve all their problems, but trust me, $2,100 for this family, more than what they have today, will help them a lot, and it rewards the work they're doing. What about a single mother? Let's say she's a child care worker. She has 1 child living in Miami, Florida, where I live. She works full-time, and according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the median wage for that job is $14,800 a year. She gets a tax cut under the current bill of about $100. If we do what we're talking about doing, Senator Lee and I, she gets a $1,000 tax cut. I'm not telling you $1,000 solves all her problems, but a $1,000 pay increase for a single mother making $14,800 a year will matter. How about a loading dock worker and a cashier in Northwest Florida after having 2 kids? Here's where we point to a glaring blind spot in the way this is structured. Again, because many working families, because this child tax credit is non-refundable, it'll actually be less valuable to parents than the dependent exemption and the existing child credit are under current law today. And I think this is the opposite of pro-family policy. So let's look at this example. He works as a freight mover at a lumber warehouse, and she works as a cashier. They both work and live full-time in Live Oak, Florida. Average combined income, about $28,650. Under the current tax code, the way the law is today, if they had 2 kids, their tax cut would be $2,776. That's what they would save. Under the current bill, their tax cut would be $2,656. So in essence, under the way the bill's structured now, they would be getting $120 less, or keeping $120 less than what they would under the law today for a family making $28,000 a year. We can fix it, because under the proposal that Senator Lee and I will have, they're going to see a tax cut of $4,000 for having that additional child. That's $1,200 greater than the current law. That's a raise of $1,300 more than would happen under the bill as it's currently structured. I don't think this was an intended consequence, but this is a working family. They work. They pay payroll tax. They make $28,000, $29,000 a year. Trust me when I tell you this money will matter. It won't solve all their problems, but it will help. It will help. It's a pay raise. And last but not least, I look at my own, where I live. I live in West Miami, Florida. I've lived there since 1985. It is a working class neighborhood. According to the census, the average family income in West Miami, where I live, $38,000. Let's say $39,000. That doesn't mean West Miami's poor. I know the people there. They work hard. They pay their taxes. They raise their children well. They go to work 5 days a week, 8 or 9 hours a day, sometimes on the weekends. But because it's a working class town, the non-refundable increase we put in to the child tax credit doesn't do much. As an example, based on the census data for West Miami, for that zip code that I live in, more than 2,500 children in this zip code, meaning more than half of the total number of children living in that area, would be receiving less than the full credit than they would otherwise be eligible for. Why? Because their parents, their primary tax liability is the payroll tax. And you cannot help working families with a tax cut if you do not allow the cut to apply to the payroll tax. It's as simple as that. We have to do that. You want to help people in this country, you really want to help them have a little bit more in their pocket, then let's do this proposal we have. And by the way, I hear these economists and other people say, well, it won't do anything for growth. You really don't understand how working Americans live. For someone that makes $38,000 a year or $35,000 a year, they basically spend every penny they make. They have to. You make $38,000 a year with 2 kids, you are spending every penny you make and then probably having to put the extra on your credit card, unfortunately. That will drive consumer spending. It will allow them to pay for some things they can't buy now. These kids outgrow their shoes so fast. The book bags don't make it through a year. These are so many things that we could be helping families with. And our tax reform should do that. Everybody else in this town has a trade association, has a lobbyist, has newspapers that write about them. Who writes about them? Who writes about these working Americans? Working Americans. Okay? Not people asking for anything from the government. They go work. They work hard. They work every day. Who fights for them? Who talks about them? Who represents them? That's supposed to be us. And if we're serious about representing them, then let's prove it. Let's amend this bill and change it so we can give working Americans the raise that they deserve and that they need to strengthen our country and strengthen our families. And with that, Mr. President, I yield the floor.